I'll just go through a bit about the tactics that I've been using and that are useful for getting the kind of look you want in the various in your films, essentially. So there's three main ways that I've been using to create the kind of the content or put the content on the screen that I've been using. So I'll just go through them briefly, and they're different levels of complexity, basically. Some of them you need to know a bit more about, maybe Photoshop or After Effects, and some are more just copying and pasting text, essentially. So the first way, this can be used for desktop websites and mobile websites, but not for apps, importantly. So essentially, you've got, say, YouTube here. If you right click on, so for instance, with this, I want to replace this cat, the thumbnail anyway, not the actual preview, replace the cat there with, let's say, that cat here. So how do I do this in a way that's interactive? So with this, I right click, inspect element. I'm using Microsoft Edge for this, but in other browsers like Chrome, it does the same thing, and it's in Chrome, I think it's called inspect element, and here it's just called inspect. So this pulls up this right screen here. Oops. So it pulls up that right screen here, and you click inspect element and it highlights this section. So here, it varies depending on what you're changing. So with this image, this will be different to if I was changing this text. But for this image, what you're looking for is SRC, and then that bit here. So that link, if I copy and paste that, that is the image that they're using there. So this whole thing here is downloaded to your computer, which means you can change that code. So then if you replace that code with, so copy image link, you can use this for anything. So if you have a locally hosted image, you can then just use that URL, whatever that is, as long as that's just a single image, you can then copy that, paste it into here, and then it replaces it with yours. So then obviously you can carry on and do that through all of the images on the screen if you want. And then if you wanted to change the text, similarly, you inspect it. That one's slightly different, but again, here, the last thing here, it tends to be the last thing that then points to what you're changing. So with that, cat versus invisible wall compilation, and then you just literally double click on it, type in cat replacement or whatever it is. So with that, that's changed the text. And then with that, the channel name, you change it to whatever you want. So with that, you can effectively replace the content of an entire web page with whatever you want, which is pretty cool. I'll just close out of that. YouTube is quite slow to come back to the main page. But the key advantage with that is that it's interactive. So as opposed to a template, which is just fixed, and then you have to put in all the animation yourself, with this, you can do stuff like that, change the actual size of the window, and it responds to you. So you can open it, close, or rather, drag it around, make it bigger and smaller. And because it's using the actual interface, you don't have to do any more customization. So once that's set, you can then do that, open it, minimize it, open and close it. And if you're recording your screen, so obviously this part of the course is being recorded. So if you just record your screen like that, you can literally just have somebody interact. You're capturing the mouse, you're capturing that thing that you've replaced, and you can just literally act out in a much more natural way, rather than having to fiddle about with all these different templates and stuff. So that's quite cool. And the way also that you do it with, this is a little bit more fiddly because I'll have to refresh the page, but the way, actually, no, I don't think I do. So with this, you can change I'll have to refresh the page. But essentially, if you inspect element, again, it's a similar thing in other browsers, you inspect element and you're looking for something like network conditions. So it should be exactly the same in Chrome. You go into these few dots, more tools, network conditions, and then user agent, if you unclick that, what should happen is you will be able to select what browser you're using. So if you select iOS and refresh it, that should then present it as the iOS browser. So with that, it converts your navigation thing to a little circle. But again, if you're screen recording, there are tools that you can use to not show your cursor. So with this, it can move as if you're moving it with your finger. And the useful thing with this is the fact that as you're moving it up and down, if you click and drag, it again has all of the interface elements. So if you move it up like that, it bounces back. You scroll down like that, and then the top bar disappears. So even though it's a little bit techy in terms of the, all of that code on the right-hand side, once you're in and once you're recording, it's basically completely natural. You don't have to fiddle about with, the interface or anything, because you can customize literally everything you're seeing. The only disadvantage with that thing really is that once you have edited a thing, it's only saved temporarily. So if I edit this image, say, and then put in that cat again here, then if I click on it, and then go back, or if I refresh the page, it essentially loses that information. There are ways around this, which involve basically you download the web page and then you modify all of this code in like a code editor. But they're kind of a bit more complicated just because you're literally just staring at this code on the right-hand side. That's probably the better option if you're doing it, if you need to go back to it again and again. But if you literally just wanted to set up a web page to display the, plot elements you needed, I'd recommend doing something like this. Just having a look at my notes, but yeah, the key of that is that you can literally resize the page and it will respond naturally. It'll be responsive to you without having to do any further editing. So if you're not particularly used to stuff like motion graphics, it can be really useful. The second version of doing this, which is perhaps more relevant for like apps rather than mobile sites, because obviously you can do it like that, is this is more like general advice, and I haven't really got any stuff on screen to present with this, but just in terms of how would you create a device for your character, without it if you've only got one device, for instance, how can you record what's the easiest way to record it as if it was your character's device? Because obviously you've got all your apps on there already. How do you install everything and put the wallpaper and all that stuff without it being difficult to manage because of the amount of apps, or then changing all the wallpaper back or whatever. For that, there are a couple of options for that as well. One is using like an emulator. So there's a few Android emulators that you can use on Windows PCs. I don't think there are iOS ones. I think you need a Mac for that. But there are a few Android emulators, like BlueStacks is one, where you can basically install Android on a PC and install apps and interact as if it was a phone. So that's one option, and just screen record your screen. Another option, which I think is, for me personally, probably a better one, just because it's more naturalistic, is literally just back up your phone, back it up to the cloud, wipe it, and then install everything as your character would have it. All the apps or whatever, create another backup of that. So then if you have to go back and forward, if you have to go back and forward, kind of, going back to your phone and then adding a bit more on the character's phone, recording a bit more on the character's phone, you have those two backups then. So you can then wipe the phone, reinstall all your apps, carry on using it. A few days later, you can come back, wipe the phone again, reinstall the character's, image on that phone, and then just do a screen record as normal and then swipe through it and stuff. But that obviously has the advantage that you've got it all set up. You literally just single click wipe. It takes about 10 minutes maybe. Download the image or reinstall it locally, and takes another 10 minutes, and then you can start doing it. And then at the end, you wipe it and then go back to normal. In terms of that, a good way to emulate somebody messaging your character is to use an app like Hushed. I think it's available for Android. Certainly I've used it on iOS, but that's an app where you can buy a fake number, a fake mobile number, and you can buy them from, I think internationally. I've only used UK ones, but basically you can use that app to then text your home number. So then you could say buy 5 numbers. They're quite cheap. It's about maybe £2 each for a certain number of minutes, like 60-minute call and a few hundred texts. But you can buy, say, 5 numbers. If you want 5 different characters texting that person, and you don't want to have to ask 5 people to text your phone, you can then just download this app, buy the numbers, and then text yourself, because you're texting from the app. So then on your messages app, it comes up as if it's 5 different numbers. And then obviously you set contacts for those numbers, and just carry on. And I think most backups also include messages, so you can do that. Wipe the phone, but then in the backup will be included the messages, so you don't need to redo them again, which is very efficient, obviously. And then the last option, which is if you are more kind of technical, I guess, and I'll be providing some of these templates as well, is just literally to record the interface that you need, and then just overwrite the bits that you want to, essentially. So with this, for instance, we've got a Google Meet. The advantage here actually is that most web interfaces are very simple. They're simple block colors, very simple fonts and icons, and even the transitions are relatively simple. So this thing at the bottom here, where the bar pops up, it literally just pops straight up. There's no fade, no nothing. And then meeting details pops in at the left-hand side there. And then you have 2 16:9 videos. So all you need to do there is cut out the middle, and then put in 2 of your videos. So you've got 1 video here, which you just record and then put straight in. And then you've got 1 video on that hand side, which you just put in. And then this stuff at the bottom is literally just a cutout. So I've clicked both of those things, and that's just a separate layer. I just cut them out, and then you can toggle those 2 things on. That doesn't look like it's aligned properly, but you just toggle both of them on. So you just use the big part of the interface with just customizing the little bits that you need. So similarly here with the font, I've just emulated the font that they use and then type in whatever I want with that. And similarly here with Facebook, this is another interface. I've created a template, just literally cutting out all the elements that then you can place your own images behind. So you have this, that then you can just customize that, customize the text here, put in the messenger name, the messenger photos, that kind of thing. Obviously that's a lot more work because there's a lot more customization that has to go into it. But if you literally want the whole thing to be altered, that's probably the best way of doing it. So there's advantages and disadvantages, but obviously with this, you have to customize everything yourself in terms of motion graphics. So if you wanted, another person to pop up here, you'd have to then, animate that moving down here, and then that moving to there, or whatever the configuration is, using the actual animation as a template, essentially, which does make it easier, but it just creates more work. So they're really the main options, and it kind of depends on what you want to record, because customizing stuff like this, I think is better for desktop and mobile websites. Screen recording or app emulation is better for when you're doing apps, because this isn't possible to do for apps because they're obviously downloadable. And then the templates, I think, is probably better when you want maybe more control over it. So when it's something like this, which is very complex, it wouldn't be easy to literally customize every single option. So each one of these would have to be, done manually, a new face added for each one, if you were doing it this way. But then here, you can literally just set a different photo, save the file, and then you have that file. So yeah, they're the different options. But then obviously, if you click on something like here, photo video, that highlights and then something else pops up. So it can become quite complicated if you want a lot of interaction with your website. If you wanted a lot of interaction, it tends to be better to do it on the actual site, because then when you click, it makes, so with that pops up, the loading thing pops up. It's just a lot easier to do if there's less to customize, if that makes sense. The more interaction you have with a template, the more difficult it makes it. So yeah, they're the kind of different options, and all these templates I'll kind of be providing once they're done. I've nearly done all the desktop ones. I'm just moving on to the mobile templates. And then obviously it's up to you to just kind of customize them more and use however you want to use it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if anyone's got any questions about the different methods of doing that.
I've got one, Ryan.
Yeah.
You know, all of these bits, like can you just add photos into these squares here? How do you do that? Is it just
Yeah,
a
yeah,
drag?
yeah, basically. So all of that is transparent. So that one, for instance, um, that is a so I'll see if I can do it here quickly. So if I take that, all right. So that, for instance, if you place it behind the background, you can do that essentially. So
Yeah.
all these are cutouts, which means that you just take the photo you want and position it where you want. Obviously, there are different layers, so some things are in front of other things, but it's essentially just drag and drop where you put in the photos you want at the places you want, and then just go for it really.
It's relatively easy, and the same at the top there.
Yeah,
Just
and stuff like that. So you've got notification bubble, which is essentially customizable. So I don't know where else they have red notifications, but I think they have them on here. So if you wanted to move that to there, like that, and then you can change it to whatever number, or if there's one important thing, then you can just change that to suit. So obviously it is a template. It's not the kind of thing where you can just go in and everything is done for you. But well, it is to a degree, but like if you needed to, that's a template for a notification bubble. So then if you wanted 10 notifications, you could change the text, make it bigger for 10. If you wanted one, you make it smaller for that. But everything's laid out essentially for you to customize. Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
And stuff like this. So you've got the active, because there's a lot, as I said before, there's a lot of interactivity, which is difficult to get all of them, but I've just got the general gist of them. So for instance, the active dot, if somebody is active or not active. So then if you wanted to portray them, they're offline. I don't know the interface, how it responds to people coming online, but say they're offline and then suddenly they come on, then that's obviously something that you could portray with that. Yeah, like that. So it's off. I think it's a little bit darker when it's like that, and then they come on like
And
that.
you just change that in the layers.
Yeah, so all the layers are on the right here, and yeah, they're basically grouped by what they correspond to, and they're grouped um, by where they are on the screen, because like web interfaces tend to be grouped on like different sides. So you have like the middle, the left, and the right here. So you got the middle like that, which has everything in the middle. Then the left has everything on the left, right on the right. And then you can just, if you need something changed here, then you can just, it'll be in the right-hand side template essentially. But like I say, it depends how much interactivity you need. Because if you need more interactivity, it might be better. Like if you wanted to resize this, if you wanted to resize this, for instance, it would be more difficult because, when you resize something like this, the whole website changes. You know what I mean? Like if for whatever reason you wanted to have somebody go from full screen to like that, it's going to change, and that's going to be quite difficult to do in graphically. Not impossible, but it's just not worth the effort. Like it's not worth putting so much time into just somebody resizing a window. So it just depends on what you need to achieve with the look of it, basically.
So with them, see these things, with the statuses, is that just copy and paste that, and then change the name and the text in it, and
yeah, that's just a text box. So it's a resizable text box. So if it was, say, very very short message, you could just type in, whatever the message is here, and you have the post box. So you just resize the actual box. The bottom part should include, I haven't finished all of this, I don't think. But the bottom part, you should be able to move as well. And just move up to here. So then you have the comments. And again here, all of the interaction with it as well, depending on how people interact with it. Move that up to here. So it's customizable essentially. For what is needed.
Great.
Yeah.
How's everyone getting on with their edits? Is this looking relatively where we need to be? Are people comfortable with where we are? Do they what other information do they need? Very difficult doing this, isn't it? Because you don't know whether I have to keep on checking whether I'm on mute or not.
I heard you, Joanne. I think we heard you. And the only thing I'm short of at this point, I think, is time. So that 20th of March is looming. And, when you have to populate Windows and you need 30 different names and nicknames and so on, just to create one page, which will be there for a second, then it's, So the only thing I'm stressed about at this point is time.
What are you feeling like? There isn't, well, of course there isn't enough time. Do you have many pages like that you need, Agnes?
Well, I also have 2 people in my team, a graphic designer and an editor, who are working on it. But I'm doing the copywriting part of it. And so, I think if the deadline would be a week later would help in a major way, but it is what it is. So I think we have to, if the deadline of the 20th cannot be moved, then what I'm going to do is 2 or 3 days before, we'll just draw a line and finish up and finalize wherever we got that far by that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe, I think that maybe we can, to be honest with you, Agnes. I think, I mean, I'm getting the feeling from a number of participants who are just getting a little bit overwhelmed by the time scale. So maybe me and Martin will talk about that tomorrow in the morning, and Karen, and think about, maybe just changing the way that we're going to present these things. If we decide, because of course, Screenlife Liverpool is the UK arm of Basilev, so that is always going to be there, and the relationships that we've built with people as well. I don't want to give anybody anything that you're not comfortable with. So if push comes to shove and we go, okay, there's a low, because I'm getting the feeling from, you're not the only person who's feeling this, the pressure here, then maybe we just change the deadline, and we change the format of the wrap party. Maybe, you know, that's just the way that will happen. And we continue to have the conversation about the development of these projects after the accelerator. It doesn't have to be, you know, we don't have to have things done and dusted by the 20. Well, we'd like to have the proof of concepts done so we can get them to people, but we don't have to actually have finished the conversation with the likes of the you know, the studios and the platforms that we've developed the relationships with, because I'd much rather go, here it is and it's finished, than go, it isn't finished, but you know, we've got a great vision, and sooner the vision be there before we move it past the mark. So if the general consensus is that I'm not sure we're going to be ready on the 20th, then I'll just change the format, because again, this is the first time we've done an accelerator program. You know, it is labor intensive, because we did start this course thinking, yeah, 3 hours on a Monday, 3 hours through the week, and that's actually not how it's happened. That's not how it's transpired. 3 hours on a Monday, 15 hours through the week, as well as your full-time job, as well as homeschooling your kids, as well as going to the park for a walk and all of that stuff. So maybe we've just applied a little bit too much pressure, and we can review it. And I'm quite happy to do that, because I'm very comfortable with the relationships that I've built with the platforms and the studios as well. So if you would prefer to present something on the 29th, then present it on the 29th. I'm easy. Martin, what do you think?
I think you're too soft on them. You can be good cop, I'll be bad cop. Right, a couple of things. Everybody needs a deadline, right? That's just nature of things. Everybody needs a deadline. But a couple of things about it. One, and your deadline's either going to be 22nd or the 29th. You're still going to have a deadline. A couple of other things about that 22nd date. Initially, certainly has been really driven by Moscow, as it were. We're trying to get stuff in front of as many people over there in advance of the 29th, so that people have got a chance to look at things and to circulate it and get notes on it, so that when we come back on the 29th, you're going to get a better experience in that final wrap in terms of the feedback that you get from people. On the 29th, we're also going to have not just people from Basilev's, but people from all sorts of different places that we're inviting, different production companies, different screen agencies, you know, different film funds, who are all going to be there and have a look. So it's completely correct to say that we're going to carry on after the 29th and still develop things, and we're still going to have conversations. And 29th isn't the end of everything. But since more people will get their eyes on your work if it's ready for that last week, and really, you know, the earlier the better. But if it has to be the case that things are only coming into completion the last couple of days before, or that kind of last part of the week before the 29th, then that's all right. That's fine. But we want to try and put on display at the end of this a number of proofs of concept that show that the accelerator can produce work that's going to be developable, that can be produced commercially, right? So we're not just here for the purposes, you know, we're not an A-level class in which we're going to do your piece of pottery and take it home from night school. That's not what we want to do. We want to help you make something that's going to be a product that you're going to be able to take to market. And that's really the point of the digital skills camp, boot camp it's called, and why it was funded, so that we can actually create things that are going to be viable commercial products at the end of it. And that's where we want to get to, even if 29th isn't the last day of school, as it were.
Okay, so consider yourselves told. But I do. I mean, I do not want to move in, because of course Martin's absolutely right, but we don't want to move anything that you're not comfortable with. So let's just see how we go, and do what's right for the work. Martin's absolutely right. It is that is what it's all about. It's about selling your work. But I think that we can do that. Let's just see how we go over the next week or two.
Chris has just said something in the chat. I mean, I've said my thing. I've said what I think, but you know, I've got high expectations of you all. Just tell us how you're feeling, Chris. You think you need more time? Chrissy.
Well, it's not a case of I'm working in my head that on the 20th it will be finished, and it will be to be presented on the 28th as is planned. It's just today really, for myself, the project's been going really well the past week. I've got all my shoots in the bag now, which is fantastic. I've got everything assembled. It's just a conversation I've been having with an editor who I've hired. He's just been a bit difficult with regards to his fee. He's asking to invoice his fee, and I don't know if that's possible. And if it isn't possible, then that means that I've now sort of got to find another editor, lastminute.com. And I do have contacts. There are people I can approach. It's just, you know, it feels a bit like the rug's sort of been pulled under me a bit. And that's what I mean with the sort of the time pressure now, because I was on track with how things were, but if he's not being cooperative, my editor, then that sets me back a bit, to be honest. So that's where I'm at.
What does he mean? He wants to invoice, so he can invoice, but it's just, does he expect to be paid before the job or afterwards?
No, he says he doesn't care about when he gets paid. It's just the process that we have with the new starter forms and the national insurance, because he's self-employed basically, and he does, you know, all this sort of thing all the time. And he said he just doesn't feel comfortable giving in his national insurance number, because he says he does his own taxes. But you know, it's been quite clear, you know, the process in place to get the fees where they need to go. Karen sent out the paperwork, so he's just he's asking me if it's possible for him to invoice us for his fee, but I'm assuming that isn't possible, just given, you know, the process we already have in place with that paperwork.
It's not impossible. It would take just infinitely longer than paying him that way. What would have to happen is he'd have to be made a supplier before he could invoice, and you don't want to go through the process of becoming a supplier at Edge Hill University. I can tell him that for nothing. It'd be quicker. His national insurance from the tax office.
I'm sorry.
What do you need?
Martin?
Sorry, go on, Chris.
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that. You sounded like a Dalek for a second. It went a bit glitchy.
Oh, sorry, I'm just saying it'd be quicker reclaiming these tax than trying to become a supplier at Edge Hill University. But what do you need in terms of an editor?
So Dom's basically going to be putting together the actual interface of the desktop. So mine takes place all on a Mac desktop computer screen, and I've got all the footage and sounds in the bag. I was employing him to assemble that and construct the motion graphics himself, to get it all put together. Because he does a brilliant job. So yeah, I just contacted him. I thought he'd be the man for the job. And he's on board, but just having the conversation about payment today with him, he just says, like, categorically he doesn't want to give any of his personal details, like his specifically is national insurance. And I said, well, if that's where you are, I'll have a word. But you know, that's sort of been the spanner in the works today, which is a bit disheartening. But you know, no show without punches. There's always got to be something.
How many days do you need an editor for?
It's a good question. I don't edit myself, so I would guess at a push from what I've done previously, about a minute is like 2 hours, 3 hours a minute, something like that. So 3-minute piece, what's that? 15 to 20 hours. 20 hours is the number that I've got in my head.
Okay. Okay. Have we got a time to talk this week?
Yeah. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock.
Tomorrow. I think if it's 3 minutes, then it's 9 hours, isn't it? So, let's have a look at it tomorrow, because I'd noticed Luke's just said the same thing. He's got a similar thing going on. Let's have a conversation tomorrow. Let's me, Martin, and Karen have a think about how we can maybe do it. Maybe we can do it in a different way. I don't know. But we should.
I had a thought how to do it, Joe, but I'll talk to you about it.
Okay. I think it's probably the same thought that I'm having.
Is it best then, sorry, if I wait until we've had our chat tomorrow before I say anything against my editor?
Yeah.
We'll find a way around it. I've just had a thought how to do it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Has anybody else got that same issue outside of Chris and Luke? Okay, so we're seeing you both tomorrow anyway, so we'll find a way around that. Anybody else got anything that they want to raise?
Oh, hello.
Sorry.
Yes. So just to confirm, so this 22nd, 29th deadline. This is the So is that so? You say proof of concept. This is just to make sure this isn't a fully edited, is it? It's not fully edited now.
What do you mean?
I was going to say it's so you know we have this deadline for the 22nd or the 29th.
Yeah.
So does it have to be a full film, fully finished, full sound, full editing, everything? Or is it just like a rough one? Maria gave a name for it, but I can't remember what it was. Just like a little rough one.
The previs, you mean?
That's the one. Yes.
So I think if you would like your work to be to go to, and if it's ready for that, and of course, granted, not all of the proof of concepts will be in a position to go forward to a platform or to go forward to a studio to say, this is the idea. Previs means that you've got more work to do on it. So actually, if we was to have a look at the previs, that would be about me, Martin, and Karen looking at it and saying, right, okay, maybe you develop it this way, develop it that way. If you want your work to go over to the studios and to the platforms that we're talking to about the accelerator course, then it would be finished and it would be polished.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, are you on the Screenlife challenge with the Moscow school?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's a totally different deadline, Dave.
Yeah.
You're looking at a June deadline. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, did you mention that? Sorry, what? Sorry, what? Yeah. What is this?
Yeah, don't worry about it. Dave,
oh my God.
My advice, Dave, is turn up to class other times and you would know that. Don't worry about it, Dave. We'll talk about it later. Don't worry, it's fine. Okay.
I'll tell you what, my heart was in my mouth then. I was like, sorry, what?
Yeah, you're in the clear.
Okay.
I'm on one. Everybody's getting told off tonight. Who's next? No worries, Dave. That's fine. I was just interested in Gary's presentation. When you did that iOS, that magical thing with iOS, Gary, what other things can you do that with? Because people have been thinking about using retro formats and all sorts of things. What else can you do when you do that thing where you create the website that looks like an iOS platform?
How do you mean? Sorry. So the website that looks like the iOS platform.
Yeah. So when you clicked on that and turned that into iOS, there was a whole lot of different options there. I mean, how far back do some of those templates go? What else can you do in that?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Let me just have another look. It's mainly just the screen size, to be honest, because let's have a look. Yeah, it's just the screen size. So essentially, you've got the Moto G4, Galaxy S5, Pixel 2. So you've got a few different phones. You've got iPad Pro, Surface Duo. So it's just the screen resolution essentially, because these are developer tools I'm using, which give you options. It's for people to test their websites on different kinds of stuff. So you've got an option at the side. I'm just checking here. You've got an option to like rotate the screen, so you can have it landscape or portrait. So yeah, you can literally interact as if it's a website through the whole thing. And like I said, with the user agent thing, if you change the user agent, so it's like essentially the user agent is telling the website you're using an iPad or an iPhone or whatever you're using. So then it displays the website in a way that is as if it's an iPad or an iPhone. So all the text and everything on it is formatted in that way. But yeah, I mean, personally, I prefer like doing it, the verisimilitude of it feeling as if it's real. And with that, you don't have to copy anything. You don't have to do any of the motion graphics. If you can do a lot of it like on the site as it was designed, I think that's the better way to do it. But it does totally depend on how much interaction you need, because as I said, as soon as you click on something, it's gone. But also there are ways to get around that. Just if you search, website downloader and HTML editor, just you can essentially download the website and download the CSS, which is essentially what it instructs your web browser how all that text is displayed. So you download them, put it into an editor, an HTML editor, and you get all of that text on the right-hand side. It comes up and you can edit that. The reason that that's more complicated is because you don't then see the preview of it. You have to save it and then view it in your web browser. So it's a little bit more complicated to do, and a little bit, you have to find the right bit to edit. But if you can do that, you can essentially recreate the entire website with the images and with the text that you choose, and then save it on your machine. So again, it's like a template. It's a little bit less intuitive to use because it's all just text. It's not like Photoshop where you just drag and drop stuff. And as filmmakers, a lot of us probably won't be overly familiar with like code editing or whatever, but it can lead to better results because it's completely interactive. But yeah, there's different options basically for it. And for websites, I'd say that's a pretty good one.
All right, no, I get it now. So that's basically a tool you would use if you were testing what your website looked like on a mobile device. If you were creating a website for a business, this is what it would look like this is how it would look like if somebody viewed it on the phone, and you can change the elements of it. Right? Okay. Yeah.
So I've posted an HTML editor in the group, in the chat. So that's somewhere where if you download a website, you can just edit all that code yourself, and you can change the text. You can change the images that they're referencing. So you can just, again, it's a matter of, for this, it might not be, because you'd have to learn essentially how all that is presented. It's kind of copy and paste-ish, but you kind of have to maybe learn a bit of how the HTML is presented, but, which might not be doable within the time. But once you've done that, it's kind of like, you've got that then, and you can just use that and drag and drop. And like I say, you can literally just record your screen then, because you're interacting with that website. You can save one Facebook page that's then just here's how Facebook is presented, and one YouTube page, and that's just your character's YouTube page, and just recreate it like that. So I'm creating Instagram profiles for some of the characters in mine, where I'm just going to then edit the follow account, to make it look like they have more followers. So I'm interacting with it as if it's the Instagram app or the website, and then just edit little bits to give it that realism. If they have 10,000 followers, 50,000 followers, they have all the photos, and you can click and drag and stuff on the photos, and it just saves you time having to recreate all those effects in your editor. Essentially, you just edit the bits you need to edit, like the follow account, for instance.
I think as well, just to add to that, in traditional filmmaking, just dress the frame that you show in the audience. So, if you're drawing attention to a particular part of the screen for the audience to see, like a particular phrase or an emoji, you just need to show that particular thing. You don't have to see the whole page, as it were.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing as well. There's a bit in mine where he's like making an investment in like a stock app, and I thought, well, if I'm trying to create, I'd have to, if I did the whole app, I'd have to make like replace how much he's investing, replace the name of the stock, replace the stock graph to going up or down, and I'd have to replace all these things. And it's like, why bother when, like you say, you can just say the only information we need is him clicking buy, how, doing the slider, putting loads of money in, maybe not showing the amount, but just putting the slider up, buy, and then it says, congratulations, you bought this stock. So I'm just zooming really close in on that, because why do you need anything else?
There's a comment in the chat from Chris. There's suggested quick way of doing things.
One, there's a lot of Chris's.
Chris D, I think it is. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I think it should be Chris.
Yeah, I was just saying that I think 3 hours for a 1 minute edit is normal for if it was documentary or something, but with Screenlife there's so many elements and so many animations and stuff, you're looking at least triple the time per minute. So if you have a graphic designer or a motion designer who can be creating the elements while your editor is composing things, you're hitting two birds with one stone. You're not waiting around for one guy to compose every single element and then take it into the composition stages. You've got two people working on it at the same time. If it's a one-man job, I mean, Andy, you might have a different approach, but I think about 40 hours minimum for a 3-minute Screenlife film.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's definitely triple the amount of time, say, compared to a documentary edit. Definitely, it's almost an extra layer of editing, because you're editing your story and your action, but then you've also got all these kind of graphical and animation elements, as Chris has pointed out there.
Yeah, and you're guaranteed that the director's going to be like, oh, I don't like this one thing, and that one thing is going to have a staccato effect, and then you're going to have to change a whole load of elements just to make one line of dialogue or whatever work. It's just like that.
This is one of the really frustrating things about COVID as well, is because in the past, whenever I've made my films, I've sat in the edit suite and like with non-Screenlife films even, which like you say, there's less elements to edit, but even that can be so time consuming, because as you say, all it can be is that one beat isn't right. And then I can imagine, just from like having gone through the session with Ryan today, the knock-on effect that has. So bloody COVID once again.
I think one of the things that's quite telling, and one of the things that was pointed out a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember which masterclass it was, but actually talking about the Searching 2 is the director is actually the editor. So it's not a niche, it's the editor who worked on Searching 2. And that's because most of the direction is done through the edit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, cause I'm working with Nick, Nick's used to like old age script writing, but I've had to try and say, you know, every single element that's on your desktop screen needs to be written down almost, you know, what's in the doc, what are the 6 messages that she hasn't read, what are the this, that, and the other. It's just like, as Andy says, it's another layer that as a writer, I don't think people understand much until you get into Screenlife, like how much importance every single element on the screen is. Like the time of day matters, and things that you can really be overlooked. Is the trash full, is it empty, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
What other templates are you still going to make, Ryan, that people will be able to use?
Let me have a look. I mean, yeah, it's a few desktop and some mobile ones. It's the kind of common ones: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Tumblr, Spotify, TikTok, and then just on Snapchat. Yeah, and then just on mobile as well. So the app, I guess. Yeah. So they're kind of standard templates, but they are mainly just the home pages, but it just gives you a baseline to then work off, essentially. So, you know, like I say, when you mouse over certain bits, sometimes it highlights and it goes darker or whatever, that part of the interface goes darker. But, you know, it's just about having like a baseline that then you can customize more. Yeah, you know, so then, you know, pops up, and then if there was something specific, because obviously it's very difficult to cover every single use case, but then it just gives you a baseline for then if you wanted to create more interaction, you know, you've got everything that you can customize laid out in front of you, and then you can just add that customization manually.
So when are these going to be ready for people to use?
I can send over most of the desktop ones by tomorrow, and then the mobile ones likely by Thursday. Most of the desktop ones are done already. Just a couple more, Tumblr and Pinterest to do, but they'll be done by tomorrow. And yeah, and then just the apps to go.
Right, brilliant. That's great.
So did everybody put in their orders, or have you just done them off the cuff, Ryan?
How do you mean, sorry?
Did people order them, or have you just done a series of them that will be useful?
Oh no, they were just from the ones that you sent over. So they're just the standard stuff. Obviously, if you know, it depends on how much other stuff were needed, if it were needed. But like I say, because it gives you a template, all websites pretty much are designed in one style. So the colors are the same, the layout can be similar. So, you know, even if there was something that were like a messenger window, you know, adding that in is relatively simple because you've got the baseline that then you can add it to. So I probably wouldn't even need to do it myself. It just takes a lot of the work out of it, you know, because if each interface takes, say, a few hours to create, you know, a little tiny window, a messenger window, for instance, it might take 10 minutes, you know, it doesn't take a long time.
Yeah, so just with all that in mind, Chris and Andy, is that what you were suggesting will take up all the time?
I think it's more like what Ryan's done will give everyone a really good base jump towards what they want, but it's the animations, and you know, if there's something in the template that they want to change, that's creating that from scratch as well.
Yeah.
If the way that I'm building the Nix is just starting at the desktop and building as the editing, the week we had the editor in, building everything from scratch from the background, and then putting the doc in as its own thing, so that if it comes to those changes, you can make them. But I think what Ryan's done is great, and it will help a lot of people. But there's still going to be a lot of editing. It's not going to shorten the time down to just a normal edit. There's still going to be a lot more involved.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, Ryan, I thought your presentation was great, and you know, dropped some real kind of gems for everyone there. But in terms of kind of saving time, I'd sort of urge people to go with the screen recordings rather than trying to build anything from scratch unless it's something really specific. So for example, if you take a web page that's specific to the character or to the story, then use stuff that's already there, where you can. As it's it is a proof of concept, so you're just trying to get your idea across in the best looking way possible, really. Obviously if there's development that comes afterwards, then yeah, you might go down the road of doing it or building it from scratch. But I think so one kind of that fast way to do something like that is picture in picture, if you're familiar with that within editing, where you will take a real web page, but you can just drop in your picture of your character. Okay, it mightn't be as interactive as scrolling up and down, but don't forget you can edit in terms of like a montage, so you can show a still screen or a still page and then cut into a close-up of that image, so it gives the audience the sense of movement, because you're chopping, you're montaging rather than scrolling and swiping and stuff like that, which is great if you can achieve that. But if you're stuck for time, go for montage.
Yeah, that's a really, really good suggestion. And also, outside of that, I don't know whether anybody has used the click order from the Screenlife site, which is free to download and to be able to do screen recordings. But especially if you're going from one website to another, just taking into consideration what Andy's just said there, you could, if you was to map out your sequence of events. So just as an example, let's use Andy's subject. So if you're looking at dementia and you put in dementia through the click order, the whole of the Screenlife interface is clickable. So when you go dementia comes up, and then you've planned in your next step and then your step after that and step after that. You can just record everything. And of course, if you're going from dementia to sleep patterns to this to that, if it's already in the history and you've already planned it out, you could record that in 30 seconds. And the information will come up that you're trying to direct your audience to engage in as well. So it might be for tomorrow, or for when we're having these conversations, when we're having our hour chat, to think about the subject matter that you're going to be editing. Like as an example, Chris, yours is the Silver Surfer, isn't it? Taking them from one place to another might be doable through just that click order site.
Definitely something that I've kept in mind with the actual proof of concept scripts, and how it is, like Andy was saying about montage, and like having those sort of close-ups, those zooms, where the animation would literally just be a case of typing in she's searching for early onset dementia, click noise, cut to, page, scroll, cut to. And then a good deal of it is going to be, the premise of mine is that about 2/3 of it is a FaceTime call, with in between bits of the call, it cuts to what they're sort of talking about to demonstrate the arc of the story. It's not going to be massively heavy on motion graphics. It's just going to be a lot of cuts and different sort of static pages, and the animation will just be typing. So
see, that is all doable in that click order. That you could do that. And we'll have more of a conversation about that. Maybe one of the again, we haven't done it. We never do. We never make use of the technology that we already have. What's special about the Screenlife format is its technology and the ability. And I don't know whether Andrew's in here, who was doing the the rabbit hole type stuff, but this format is perfect to map out your route and then just go for it through the click order technology, because your whole your whole screen is clickable. So you could have it over here, click on that, then she could click on this, and of course she's always in the background doing and talking at the same time, but it's just you're just recording your screen. So I mean, that's something that maybe we should make more use of, and maybe towards the end we'll do because we're in that, and even the Basilevs staff don't make enough of the technology that we've got here, so maybe we should be thinking a little bit more along them lines, especially for proof of concepts.
Definitely.
Elisa, you access it through the Screenlife site. I've just been asked the question, where do we access the technology? If you go onto the Screenlife website, you can set up your own space on the site. So everything, you can download the click order technology, the Screenlife technology, and you can use it there. So it's on the cloud as well.
When you first go onto the Screenlife website, it'll be in Russian. And so you can click on a little Union Jack in the top right-hand corner, and you get the English language version of all those pages. So if you land in the first time and it's in Russian, just do that. Chris L, is that a new hand?
Yeah, it is. So just as we've been talking, the Timur has been helping India with its first Screenlife film, and I've just found, I'm going to put the link, but there is the making of See You Soon with Mahesh Narayan, and it's from beginning to end of how they made the film See You Soon, shot on iPhone, shot on computer, and it's an hour and 20 minutes long of how they did it from beginning to scratch, beginning to end from scratch. First time they've ever done anything like that. So it could be quite an interesting watch.
Yeah.
Have you got a link for it there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm just going to put the link up now.
Fantastic.
Could I ask Nick Connor what advice he might have to offer about editing? Sorry to put you on the spot there, Nick.
No. So we've not started the edit, but in terms of the previs that I've been doing, I think it's hard because I'm not that experienced in the editing side. So if I was to give you really good advice, it'd be follow what you've done. Sorry, that's terrible, Andrew. But what you've done before looks great, and I think it's all down to the rhythm, isn't it? I think that'd be my core thing, as with all films, and making sure you got that pace and that sensibility of what the rhythm is in relation to your story and your character. But yeah.
Just as a bit of reassurance, anything that I have presented, like the pitch or the vlog, that was all done using screen recording. I wasn't going into any fancy coding or anything like that. So yeah, it's definitely achievable with the technology that's all we've all got.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I'm doing any form of recording, I do it especially when I'm doing Screenlife stuff. I just record it. I do screen record. I mean, even things like there's something I've just picked up off the chat, which I thought was really, really nice. So just the conversations that people have amongst each other, supporting each other through the process. It's just like taking quick screen captures and saving it for when it will fit into me edit, and I think that going right back to when Timur and I started having these conversations and the plans that we've got around making the format much more interactive is because the technology is actually already there. So people, and again, we think in a very, very traditional way of filmmaking. It's really difficult to move away from our edit suites. It's really difficult to move away from our composition and everything else, and even trying to squash them lovely things that we love about film into this format. I'm sure we will in one shape or form, but actually it's really, really simple. Just do a screen recording, but actually set it out in the way that you would set out your we're talking about previs, and we're talking about doing things in a digital way. Set it out as a storyboard, going from one website to another, where you're gonna read your, if you was to say, just as an example, and I'll go back to dementia because Andy's there, we'll put dementia on the screen. There will be different places to click throughout the highlighting sequences. So if you've got it on the screen, just know where you're going, so you've already worked out in your mind through your storyboard how fast you're going to move that cursor, or how slow you're going to move that cursor, and where you're going to hover, and then where you're going to click. And there you have it. There's your edit. It's done. So...
Sorry, go on, John.
No, I just think it's we are in a lot of ways, and the more we hear from the guys from Basilev's, we're overthinking things. We want it to be perfect. We want it to be polished. We want it to look amazing, and that's just because the way we've been taught to make film. But actually, for these little bits, what we're doing is we're selling the idea, and then we'll get the opportunity to make it beautiful a little bit further along the line, where we've got the space and the time and the money actually to be able to do it.
I think one thing that just pops into my head about the maybe this is more of a feature thing than a proof of concept thing, but I think an easy trick if you're finding yourself with a really terrible performance, because often it feels like theatre and you're recording it long form, and sometimes you want to choose one take of that actor doing that particular scene. I mean, there's really easy ways when you put your mind to it of getting around certain things. But obviously, it doesn't need to be perfect for a proof of concept. But whether that's if you're using a Evolve Greenlife, you move the cursor and the shot to another place and you come back, is another easy way. Or glitches or things like that might be an easy way of cutting around bad acting.
Yeah. But I think what's also really important here, and again, because we do think in a very traditional way, is the way that we tell our stories, and actually the screen life of the character is what drives it. Maria was saying earlier on, make sure you've got all them Facebook profiles, everything already there sitting somewhere, because actually it is that the life of the protagonist that drives the narrative. So me, I mean, the reason why I seen that little thing that I put into the WhatsApp group before is because it came up on Facebook, and someone sent it to me. I'd actually forgotten it was there, but you can tell who I am through my Facebook page, even though I haven't been on it for like 9 months. Do you know what I mean? And you could refer back to little bits of my life, like the trip to Moscow, which is a conversation that we've had tonight. So them Facebook posts, Instagram pages, all of them things are actually really important for driving the narrative, because some of the things I've been talking to people about, it is pretty much about the narrative, and actually having to squeeze the screen life into that narrative, where it should be the other way around.
And Chris has got his hand up.
And that's a previous hand. Well, I think Joe's completely correct. The thing that's going to impress anyone, whether it's Basilev's or any other investor looking at proof of concept, isn't necessarily going to be whether you've got your templates completely accurate and all the rest of it. It's the story. That's what people want to invest in, and the way you tell that story in the proof of concept is the important thing, I think, rather than trying to reproduce everything perfectly from a desktop for the purposes of a proof of concept. When we get into making films, that's a different thing. And as we've heard so many times, the edit, the post-production is the longest thing in a Screenlife, and all the things that we've been saying tonight certainly ring bells with all of that. That the edit is going to be longer. There's more involved in the edit and so on. But the important thing, certainly for the proof of concept, is the idea. That's the thing that you're trying to prove. You're trying to get your story across in the time that you've got. Anyway, that was very useful. Thank you all. That was really helpful. I think after that, we're getting really down into the nuts and bolts of making Screenlife films and the experiences people have had of trying to put together the proofs of concept. What do we want to do for the next half hour, Joe? So there's I've got a couple of suggestions, unless you've got any thoughts.
No, go.
Well, there was two suggestions. We can either go to breakout rooms and find out what people are thinking in the breakout rooms, and it depends entirely on what's useful to people at this stage, or whether people would like the time to do something else. I know Ryan does have a question about invoicing. Yes, Ryan, go on.
Yeah, it's just to clarify about it. I perhaps misunderstood what method it was going to be. So is it right that everyone who was going to be paid was going to have to give do that form with the national insurance and everything? And if that was the case, is it possible through my company maybe for them to invoice me? Because I might have an issue with that again, because I've said that they would just send an invoice either through to me or to you, and then just get paid. But if they have to fill out that as well, it might be a bit of an issue.
Don't worry about it at the moment. I've had an idea about it. I'll have a word, speak to Joe, and we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
On it. Right. Don't worry about it at the moment.
Sure.
I just in terms of like the breakout rooms, I just think we can go into the breakout rooms, but we've got the hours booked over the next couple of days, haven't we? I'm very happy to go into the breakout rooms and continue talking, but I'm just getting a feeling like that people are a little bit talked out in terms of where we are and where we need to be. And also I'm getting the feeling, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they'd much rather be focusing on doing the graft than sitting and talking about it right now.
I think that's totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the feeling in the room for that?
Dov agrees. That's the important thing. Don't switch his camera on.
Yeah, I do. I think we can talk for England about it all, can't we? And we're all very, very, we're all well versed in it now. It's like I don't feel like anybody really needs another half hour to just go over where we've already been. I think we're in a decent place, and over the next couple of days we'll use this half hour to actually talk about things that are much more constructive and productive, should I say, productive in terms of getting invoices boxed off, making sure that the right information is there for people who need a little bit extra help, especially around the screen capture and recording, because I think I just think these things are better placed one-to-one, aren't they?
No, I think that's great. I think it's really positive, because what it means is one big thing that we're ready to go. You need all the knowledge you need, all the skills you need to make this proof of concept in the next couple of weeks. And that's great that we've got to that. We've got to that stage, and there's a lot of things that we're going to be doing this week in terms of one-to-ones and hours that we've spent doing stuff offline and on WhatsApp and at weekends and things like that. So we've done a whole lot of things outside of the class as well. So there's a lot of learning hours that have been going on as well. So that's great. We're good to go. At which point you've got we'll let you out early.
Yeah, and we'll see you all over the next couple of days. Did just before we do go though, Luke, you asked to see me and Martin after tonight. Do you still need to see us? Is Luke still here?
I've booked Luke in for tomorrow.
Right.
If that's which he's agreed to, I think so. I'm not sure. Is he still here?
He's down there. He's maybe out. He's maybe nipped out for a fag.
He's booked in for tomorrow. It says.
Oh,
Yeah, he's put it on the chat.
okie doke. All right. So is everybody comfortable with that? Does anybody want any extra minutes, or does anyone want me or Martin to stay around?
I think maybe just to also say, obviously there are some concerns about the invoicing side of things. So once we've had a chat tomorrow, I'll maybe get something out to people then.
Yeah,
Is that right, Martin?
Yeah, we'll send a message out tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think I've got a plan for this now that'll get around the problem that people are having. But I just want to run it past you guys before we send it out to everybody. Right?
Okay.
All right then. Okay, we'll see you either through the week or next Monday.
Who have we got next Monday, Joe?